Hey there, adventurers. I'm so glad you could join us as we get ready for another deep dive. And this time, we're taking a look at a game called Archwind.
Archwind.
Yeah, Archwind. It's Archwynd, and it's pronounced Arcwind.
Oh, Arcwind. Okay. I
Yeah.
like it. Got a good kind of fantasy feel to it already.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And today, we're going to be diving into, well, everything about it, how to play, what's cool about it, some criticisms it's gotten, and what the future holds.
Well, let's get started then.
So I think we can all relate to this. Have you ever wanted to go on like a really awesome epic quest?
Of course, who doesn't love a good adventure?
Right. But maybe sometimes a full-blown G&D campaign feels like, I don't know, a little too much.
Yeah, I can see that. Sometimes you don't have like 4 hours to dedicate to one session.
Yeah. Or you just don't want to have to,
Mm.
wrangle the whole group, be the dungeon master, make sure everybody knows the rules.
Finding a good DM can definitely be a challenge.
For sure. And that's kind of what's so cool about Archwind. It lets you get a little taste of that RPG action, the dice roll, the choices you make, the monsters you got to fight, but in a way that fits right there on your table. And you can get through a whole game in like under 40 minutes.
Wow. Okay, that is definitely appealing.
Yeah, it really hits the spot when you just want to get in a quick game.
So tell me more. What is Archwind all about?
Okay, so picture this, right? You've got this peaceful land, Archwind,
Okay.
and out of nowhere,
Yay.
all these crazy monsters come pouring in from another dimension.
Yikes. Sounds like a bad day for the locals.
Oh yeah, big trouble. The king needs heroes. Bad.
So that's where we come in.
You got it. And Archwind, you and your friends are those heroes. You got to fight your way through these monsters, collect treasure, powerful magic items, and basically do everything you can to be the last player standing.
Okay, so it's a competitive game, everyone for themselves.
Exactly. It's a race to survive. But here's another cool thing about Archwind. It was created by this guy, David Eldred, and he's been a diehard D&D fan, get this, since 1977.
Wow, that's like basically the beginning of B&D.
I know, right?
Uh,
And you can tell he poured all that experience and passion into Archwind.
So he basically created a game that captures what he loves about RPGs, but in a more accessible format.
That's exactly it. He wanted to make something that anyone could pick up and enjoy, even if they've never touched a D&D rulebook in their life.
That makes a lot of sense. It can be a really intimidating genre to get into.
Oh, totally.
So how easy is it to learn? You mentioned something about quick setup and rules.
Oh, it's super straightforward. You can learn the rules in like 10 minutes, tops.
10 minutes, that's impressive.
And there's no need for a dungeon master. Everything you need is right there in the box.
So anyone can just grab it and start playing.
Absolutely. It's like the perfect gateway game for anyone who's curious about RPGs, but maybe feels a little intimidated by the whole, commitment of it all.
All right, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about how the game actually plays out.
Okay, so first things first, you get to pick your hero. And this is where things get interesting because there are 4 character classes to choose from in the base game.
Oh, cool. So you can kind of tailor your playstyle right from the start.
Exactly. So let's say you're the kind of person who loves to just charge into battle and take on the monsters head on. Then the fighter is your go-to hero.
The classic warrior archetype. Gotta love it.
Yeah. They're all about strength, direct combat, wielding big weapons, taking those hits, and dishing out even more damage.
Makes sense. Solid choice.
But maybe you're more of a strategist, someone who prefers a more, calculated approach. Well, in that case, you might want to go with the ranger.
Ooh, the ranger. Always a fan favorite.
Right. They're the masters of ranged combat. They know the land. They can track their enemies. And they often strike before their opponents even know what hit them.
Sounds like a good option for players who like to think a few steps ahead.
For sure. Now, if you're feeling a little, mischievous, maybe you want to go for the rogue.
The rogue, eh? Now we're talking.
Yeah. Agile, sneaky, cunning. They're masters of stealth and deception.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. They can actually steal loot from other players.
Ooh, now that adds an interesting twist. It's not just about fighting monsters. You gotta watch your back, too.
Exactly. It's a cutthroat race to survive, remember? And finally, we have the sorceress.
Ah, magic. Always a good time.
Right. The sorceress can blast those monsters back to where they came from with all sorts of powerful spells.
Sounds like a good choice for players who prefer a more, shall we say, explosive approach.
Oh yeah, they could really turn the tide of battle, but they're also a bit more vulnerable in direct combat, so you got to be strategic about how you use them.
Makes sense. It's all about choosing the right hero for your playstyle and then figuring out how to use their strengths effectively.
Absolutely. And once you've got your heroes sorted out, It's time to face the unknown.
Time for the real adventure to begin.
Exactly. And to make things even more exciting, Archwind has 3 different difficulty levels.
Oh, tell me more.
You've got your standard difficulty, which is a good place to start if you're new to the game. Then there's difficult, which ups the ante a bit. And then for those who really want to test their skills, there's God mode.
God mode, huh? Sounds intense.
Oh yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. But no matter which difficulty you choose, you're guaranteed to run into some pretty wild encounters.
All right, lay it on me. What kind of challenges are we talking about here?
Well, first up, you've got your monsters. And Archwind has a whole bestiary full of creepy crawlies.
Oh, yeah, gotta have those classic fantasy monsters.
You got it. We're talking bugbears, fungus weirds, minotaurs, crypt things, the whole shebang.
Okay, those names alone sound pretty intimidating.
Oh yeah, they're not messing around. Each monster has its own unique abilities and attack patterns, so gotta be prepared for anything.
So you can't just go in swinging blindly, gotta have a plan.
Exactly. Take the bugbear, for example. This thing is ferocious, it uses pack tactics, and it can attack multiple times per turn.
Oh, wow, so you gotta take them down quickly or they'll just overwhelm you.
For sure. And then there's the fungus weird. This thing is creepy, it can unleash spores that can affect all the players, even if they're not directly engaged in combat.
Okay, that sounds like a nightmare. Gotta keep your distance from that one.
Definitely. And we can't forget about the Minotaur, a classic charging axe-wielding beast, or the Crypt thing, this undead horror that gets even faster the more you damage it.
Okay, now you're just trying to scare me.
Maybe a little, but it's all part of the fun, right? And those are just a few of the monsters you might encounter. There are also bandits, cave trolls, fire elementals, harpies, swarms of vampire bats, you name it.
Wow, sounds like there's no shortage of variety. Definitely keeps things interesting.
Oh, absolutely. But it's not just monsters you got to worry about. You might also stumble upon some pretty nasty traps.
Oh yeah, traps. Classic dungeon crawler element. Love them.
Right. And in Archwind, these traps can be pretty brutal.
In what way?
Well, for starters, they can often affect multiple players, which adds a whole other level of tension to the game.
So even if it's not your turn, you're still on edge, wondering if you're about to get hit with something nasty.
You got it. Imagine, for example, you trigger a fireball trap. This thing sends a chain reaction of damage through all the players.
Yikes. Talk about a bad day at the office.
I know, right? And if you think that's bad, just wait till you encounter the Pixie Thieves.
Pixie thieves, what do they do? Steal your shoelaces.
Worse, they can steal all your hard-earned loot.
Oh, come on. Not the loot.
And there are other traps, too, like assassin vines that ensnare you, chaos storms that scramble your plans, disintegrate spells that threaten to wipe you out completely. Even bolts of lightning can strike down from the heavens.
Okay, you've officially convinced me traps are terrifying.
But hey, it's not all doom and gloom in Archwind.
There's hope.
There's always hope. You might also come across some really helpful events or items we call these benisons.
Benisons sounds much nicer than those nasty traps.
Oh yeah, they're like little bursts of good fortune that can really turn the tide in your favor.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me about these benisons.
Well, for example, there's the cornucopia. This thing is awesome. It showers all the players with bonus loot.
Nice. Everybody wins.
Then there's the Tranquil Meadow. And get this card lets you force another player to trade cards with you.
Whoa, now that's interesting. Adds a whole new level of player interaction there.
You got it. And if you're looking for a boost in combat, you might stumble upon an Elven Trance, which gives you an extra attack. Or a Lordly Smite, which gives you a bonus on all your attacks during your next battle.
Wow, so there are benisons that cater to different play styles and strategies.
Exactly, and that's what makes Archwind so much fun.
So you've got your character, you've got these crazy monsters and traps and these helpful benisons, but how does it all actually work?
Right, like what happens on your turn?
Yeah, walk me through it.
Okay, so each turn in Archwind follows a pretty straightforward structure. First up, you've got the draw phase. You draw a new card from the deck, which gives you more options and potential strategies to play with.
Okay, so each turn brings new possibilities. I like that.
Then you've got the play phase. This is where you get to put those cards to work. You can equip yourself with weapons and armor, cast spells, or even play cards that mess with other players.
Ooh, now that's what I call fun.
You got to keep things interesting, right? Then you've got the redeem phase. This is where you can spend those loot tokens you've earned from defeating monsters.
Loot tokens, huh?
Yeah, you get those for taking down those nasty beasties. And you can use those loot tokens to either restore your health, or you can use them to buy more cards, which gives you even more options.
Ooh, that's a tough choice. Do you play it safe and heal up, or do you take a gamble and go for more cards?
It all depends on your strategy and how much risk you're willing to take. Then you've got the discard phase, where you have to make some tough decisions about which cards to keep and which to discard.
Yeah, I can imagine that gets tricky as the game goes on and your hand fills up.
Oh yeah, you got to prioritize. And finally, the moment of truth, the encounter phase.
This is where the dice roll. Right.
You got it. You roll that trusty D20. And depending on what you roll, you might encounter a monster, a trap, or maybe even a benison.
So even with all the strategic planning, there's still an element of chance involved.
Exactly. You never know what's going to happen next, which keeps things exciting. But here's the thing that really makes Archwind unique. There's this card called the Teleport card.
Teleport. Like you can just zap yourself out of there.
Not exactly. The Teleport card lets you redirect a monster to another player.
Whoa, hold on. So you can basically send a monster to attack your friend instead of you.
You got it.
Now that's what I call strategic gameplay.
Right. It's not just about surviving those encounters yourself. It's about using those encounters to your advantage, to maybe weaken your opponents or create an opportunity for yourself.
It's a cutthroat race to survive after all.
Exactly. And that's just scratching the surface of what makes Archwind so much fun.
So I've got to ask, with all this talk about monsters and traps, is there enough variety to keep the game fresh and exciting?
That's a great question, and honestly, it's one that some reviewers have brought up. But the cool thing is, the designer has really listened to that feedback and taken steps to address it.
Oh, tell me more.
Well, first of all, he's actually added more monsters to the base game since it first came out, so there's even more variety in those encounters now.
Okay, that's good to hear.
And there's even bigger news on the horizon. There's an expansion in the work called Archwind Vale.
Archwind Vale, huh? Sounds intriguing.
It is. We'll be diving into all the details later in this episode, but let's just say it's going to add a whole new level of depth and excitement to the game.
I can't wait to hear more.
Now, I know some people have also expressed concerns about the luck factor in Archwind.
Yeah, with all the dice rolling, it seems like luck could play a pretty big role.
It definitely does, and I can understand why some people might not be into that, but I think it's important to remember that, relying on a D20 is kind of part of what makes role-playing games so unique.
True, it's that element of chance that keeps things unpredictable and exciting.
Exactly. And even though luck plays a role, there's still plenty of room for strategy and decision-making in Archwind. Your choices really do matter, and they can make a big difference in how the game plays out.
Plus, isn't that part of the fun of RPGs? The thrill of the unknown, the possibility that anything could happen.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the artwork. One of the things I really love about Archwind is that it has this really vibrant, colorful, and just fun artwork.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the cards earlier, and the art style is definitely eye-catching.
And get this, it's all created by a real, live human artist. No AI here.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. You can really tell that a lot of love and care went into it.
For sure. It's one of those details that really elevates the whole gaming experience.
So we've talked about the base game, the characters, the monsters, the traps, the benisons. What about different ways to play?
Oh yeah, there are tons of ways to mix things up. You can play in teams, you can control 2 characters at once, you can even play solo.
Wow, so there's something for everyone.
Exactly. And one of the things I really appreciate is that the creators encourage players to, get creative and come up with their own homebrew rules.
Oh, that's cool. So you can really make the game your own.
For sure. Like, for example, one idea I've seen floating around is that if your character dies, you can become the monster player for the rest of the game.
Oh, that's a fun twist. Keeps you involved even after your character bites the dust.
Exactly. And speaking of new and exciting things, let's talk about that expansion I mentioned earlier, Archwind Vale.
Yeah, I'm dying to hear more about that.
Well, get ready to be amazed, because Archwind Vale is going to bring a whole bunch of new content to the table, including even more monsters, traps, and benisons.
More monsters! Sign me up.
But the biggest addition, the one that's got everyone buzzing, is character customization.
Character customization, huh?
Yeah.
Tell me everything.
Okay, so with Archwind Vale, you will be able to use a point buy system to create your own totally unique hero.
So you're not limited to those 4 base classes anymore?
You can still choose those if you want, but now you have the option to really fine-tune your character's stats and abilities.
Wow, that opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
I know, right? It's going to add a whole new level of depth and strategy to the game.
So what kind of new characters will we see in this expansion?
Oh, there's some really cool ones. There's the Barbarian, a fierce warrior who can unleash devastating attacks. There's the alchemist who throws bombs instead of relying on standard attacks. There's the paladin, a holy warrior with healing powers. The monk, a martial arts master with unique combat abilities. And the druid, a nature-based magic user with some seriously powerful spells.
Wow, they all sound amazing.
And of course, we can't forget about the new monsters.
Oh yeah, more monsters. Hit me with them.
Okay, get ready for this. The Fallen Angel. This thing is terrifying. It has an unholy breath weapon that can really mess you up.
Unholy breath weapon. Okay, I'm officially scared.
Then there's the Fire Drake, a classic dragon that can, well, breathe fire.
And Forrest gotta have a dragon.
Then there's the Stump Fiend, this creepy camouflaged monster that can surprise you with his root and limb attacks.
Stump Fiend. Never heard of that one before, but it sounds appropriately creepy.
Oh yeah, it's a real nightmare. And there are even more cool additions like the Gas Boar, the Commodant, the Mantis, and the Ettercap.
Wow, the creators are really going all out with this expansion. I'm impressed.
Me too. Now, I know what you're thinking. When can we get our hands on this epic expansion?
That's exactly what I was about to ask.
Well, good news. The creators are planning to launch a Kickstarter campaign in May 2025.
May 2025. Okay, I'm marking my calendar.
It's still in development, but they're making great progress, and we'll be sure to keep you updated.
So in the meantime, how can people learn more about Archwind and stay up to date on the expansion?
The best place to start is their website. You can find all the details there, and they also have a really active Discord community where you can connect with other players.
Awesome. I'll definitely be checking those out.
So overall, what do you think of Archwind?
I'm really impressed. It sounds like the perfect game for anyone who loves the idea of RPGs, but maybe doesn't have the time or the patience for a full-blown campaign.
I totally agree. It's quick, it's easy to learn, it's got a ton of variety, and it's just plain fun.
And the fact that the creators are so responsive to player feedback and are constantly adding new content is really cool.
Yeah, it shows that they really care about making a game that people will love.
For sure.
So, there you have it, folks. Archwind in a nutshell.
A nutshell packed with monsters, magic, and mayhem.
Exactly. But that's not all, folks. Stay tuned, because we'll be right back after a quick break.
And we'll be diving even deeper into the world of Archwind, exploring its strategic depths, discussing some of the criticisms it's faced, and uncovering even more secrets about that upcoming expansion, Archwind Vale.
I can't wait.
See you on the other side. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already. The basics of Archwind, the different characters, those crazy monsters, the traps, the helpful events. But I'm curious, what are some of the, I don't know, the more strategic elements of the game? Like, what do players really need to think about when making decisions?
Oh, that's a great question. And it's something that I think a lot of people miss when they first start playing Archwind. It might seem like a simple game on the surface. You know, you draw some cards, roll some dice, fight some monsters. But there's actually a lot more depth to it than meets the eye.
So it's not all just luck of the draw.
Not at all. Your choices actually make a huge difference in how the game plays out. And it starts right from the beginning with choosing your character. We talked about the 4 different classes earlier. But it's not just about picking the one that sounds the coolest or has the best artwork. Each class has its own unique playstyle that really dictates your overall strategy.
Okay, so you're saying there's more to it than just aesthetics. It's about understanding the strengths and weaknesses of each class and how they fit into the bigger picture of the game.
Exactly. Like, for example, let's say you're playing as the fighter, right?
Okay.
The master of melee combat, up close and personal. Well, in that case, you're going to want to prioritize acquiring cards that give you powerful weapons and armor.
Yeah, that makes sense. You want to maximize their attack and defense, make them a real tank on the battlefield.
Exactly. Gear up, get in there, and start swinging. But if you're playing as the ranger, who prefers a more, I don't know, distanced approach, taking careful aim with those ranged attacks?
Yeah.
You're going to want to go for cards that enhance those abilities.
So cards like the longbow or the crossbow, anything that lets them deal damage from afar and stay out of harm's way.
Exactly. It's all about choosing your battles wisely, knowing when to strike and when to retreat. Now, for those who prefer a more cunning approach, there's the rogue.
Ah, yes, the rogue. Always a wild card.
Right. With their ability to steal loot from other players, you really have to think about how your actions are going to affect everyone else at the table.
It adds a whole other layer of strategy to the game, right? It's not just about battling the monsters. It's about outsmarting your fellow adventurers.
It's a delicate dance, for sure. And then, of course, there's the sorcerers, who can control the battlefield with their powerful spells.
Yeah, magic always adds a bit of unpredictability to the mix.
Right. With their magic missile ability, they can deal damage without even having to roll for an attack, which is pretty awesome. but they're also a bit more vulnerable in direct combat, so you have to be strategic about how you use them.
It's a trade-off, right? High damage output, but lower defense. You got to make sure they're protected.
Exactly. So you've got your character, you've got your strategy in mind, and then you've got to face those, those heart-stopping encounters that define the Archwind experience.
The monsters, the traps, the whole shebang.
Right. And knowing your enemies is half the battle, for sure.
It's not just about swinging blindly. It's about understanding the strengths and weaknesses of each monster and trap and knowing how to counter them effectively.
Like, for example, we talked about the fungus weird earlier, right?
Yeah, the one with those nasty spores that can affect everyone.
Exactly. Knowing that going in can really inform your choices.
Like maybe you prioritize ranged attacks so you can stay out of range of those spores?
Or maybe you equip yourself with items that can protect you from poison or disease. It adds a whole other level of strategic depth to even the simplest encounters.
Makes you think, for sure.
And then there's the Bugbear, with its multiple attacks.
Yeah, that one was a real bruiser.
That's a great example of why action economy is so important in Archwind.
Action economy, what do you mean by that?
Basically, it's all about maximizing the number of actions you can take each turn.
Okay, so the more actions you can take, the more damage you can dish out, the more loot you can collect.
Exactly. And when you're facing a monster that can attack multiple times per turn, you need to find ways to either increase your own attack output or to somehow mitigate the damage they're dealing.
So maybe you use cards that give you extra actions, or cards that let you defend against multiple attacks.
Exactly. And of course, there's always the option to just, teleport that monster to another player and let them deal with
Oh,
it.
yes. The good old pass the buck strategy. Always a classic.
It's all part of the fun. But seriously, knowing when to use those teleport cards can be a real game changer.
It's not just a random act of desperation, right? It's about thinking strategically, about choosing the right moment to strike and the right player to target.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you target the player who's in the lead or the player who's most vulnerable? It adds a whole other layer of, psychological warfare to the game.
I like it. Keeps everyone on their toes.
And it's not just about the monsters and traps either. Those loot tokens you earn from defeating monsters are a crucial resource that you need to manage carefully.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. Spend them to heal up or save them to buy more cards. It's a tough choice.
It is. And it's a decision that you have to make every single turn. Do you play it safe and focus on survival? Or do you take a gamble and invest in future possibilities?
Risk versus reward, a classic dilemma.
Exactly. And then, of course, there are the traps, which can be just as deadly as the monsters, if not more so.
Oh yeah, those traps are brutal.
But again, knowledge is power. The more you understand about the different types of traps and their effects, the better prepared you'll be to avoid them or mitigate their impact.
So, knowing that the fireball trap can cause a chain reaction of damage might live her to play a time stop card, to skip the encounter phase altogether.
Smart move. Sometimes a strategic retreat is the best course of action.
And if you're worried about those pixie thieves stealing your loot, maybe you hold off on spending your tokens until after the encounter phase.
Exactly. Don't give those little gremlins a chance to snatch your hard-earned treasure.
Yeah.
But it's not all about avoiding danger and minimizing losses either. Those benisons, those helpful events and items can be real game changers.
Yeah, they can really turn the tide in your favor.
Like, for example, the Tranquil Meadow card, which lets you force another player to trade cards with you.
Oh yeah, we talked about that one earlier. That's a great way to disrupt your opponent's plans, or to maybe snag a card that you really need.
And the Cornucopia is always a welcome sight, showering everyone with bonus loot.
Talk about a win-win.
Right. So, as you can see, there's a lot more to Archwind than just, drawing cards and rolling dice.
It's a game that really rewards careful planning, strategic thinking, and a little bit of cunning.
Exactly. And even though luck does play a role, your choices ultimately determine your fate.
I like that. It's a game that keeps you engaged and thinking on your feet.
We've had a fantastic time delving into the world of Archwind.
And to our listeners, if you're looking for a fast-paced, strategic, and utterly captivating tabletop adventure, look no further than Archwind. You can find it online, and be sure to keep an eye out for that Archwind Veil Kickstarter in 2025. Until next time, happy gaming.